Good evening, Pandora. My name is Matt Larkin, and the theme of this presentation will be looking to the future. How does Pandora adapt to a rapidly evolving music streaming marketplace as we move forward? So as we get started, I thought it would be interesting to evaluate your two streams of revenue. So number one is the music streaming market. Streaming music for listeners, for subscribers who subscribe to your application or website. And as you can see from the graph, the global music streaming market is very healthy. It's growing at a pretty astounding, nearly 20% compound annual growth rate as we move forward into 2022. So over the next 3 years, this market will be experiencing tremendous growth and will be roughly worth $16 billion by 2022. So a big piece of the pie is out there and available. And what are the drivers of this market? So number one, younger consumers just prefer streaming their audio and having these on-demand applications versus traditional AM or FM radio. And number two is the digitalization of the media industry. Maybe 10 years ago, it was uncommon to find someone with an internet-enabled device in their home. Now everyone has an Alexa or a Google Play, or some of these internet-enabled devices that can stream music. So the media industry has changed. And that has really opened up a lot of opportunities for streaming services like you. And number two, and equally as important in terms of streams of revenue, is the mobile advertising market. As you can see again, this market is also very healthy globally, growing at slightly over 13% as we move into 2023. And that market will be evaluated at over $233 billion by then. And what is the number one driver of this market? And it's the increased penetration of mobile phones and tablets. And as I just mentioned, 10 years ago, maybe one or two people had a cell phone in your house. Now everyone has a cell phone. Home phones have really become obsolete. Everyone's primary mode of contact or communication is a phone or a tablet, an internet-enabled device. And that has opened up an opportunity and made, consumers more susceptible to those mobile advertisements, which has driven the growth in this market. So, given the growth of, the music streaming market globally and the mobile ads market globally, you'd figure that you'd be sitting pretty, that Pandora would be doing very, very well. And, that's partially the truth and partially not. So, Pandora's user base in 2018 was 76 million users, which is number one by a pretty healthy margin domestically in the US over Spotify at number two and Apple Music at number three. With that said, over the past few years, your growth has plateaued pretty significantly though, whereas Spotify and Apple Music have seen fairly positive linear growth. So as you can see by another metric to sort of further that point of sort of this lukewarm standing in the market is unique monthly users. So in 2017, unique monthly users. So throughout 2017, Pandora had 37 million unique monthly users on average. With that being said, that is solidified in third place behind both Spotify and Apple Music. They are generating more unique users to their website than you are. And to further that, as you can see in your most recent annual financial filing, your 10K, in 2017 your active user hours declined by 8%. So the overall amount of time people are spending on your app has declined. And listener hours declined by 6%. So, those go hand in hand. If people are spending less time on your app, they're listening to less music on your app. So, to fully evaluate this, in terms of total users, you're number one. But, it's a fairly lukewarm position. It's not all gardens and flowers. So the objective of the research is to identify how to supplement that income. Users, if your user base is not declining, it's certainly plateaued. So if you can't compete on the basis of users, how do we supplement that income? And that's where we focus, and we really have to leverage your advertising base. So now and who will be the target of the advertising? And that'll be millennials. So why millennials, you might ask? So number one, they're the largest generation in the US labor force. Number two, they're the most educated generation in history. And number three, 75% of them have a music streaming application. And furthermore, as you can see in the graph, they have the largest purchasing power globally, their generation, millennials, and even moving forward into 2030, 2040, 20 years or so, a decade or two away, in the future, millennials are going to be very healthy in terms of purchasing power and how much money, how much expendable income they're able to fork over to different brands and different firms. So, this is really, for advertisers, this is their bread and butter. I think it's interesting that the generation themselves is age 22 to 37. So you have people that are at 22 or just graduating college or still being supported or maybe just supporting themselves and, you know, have money if you're graduating college, or will have money very soon if you'll be getting a job or whatnot. And at age 37, you've certainly settled down. You certainly have a full-time job. Maybe you have kids who will be susceptible to advertisements and you know, be susceptible to different brands and different companies that want your dollars, want your expendable income. So I really think that this, you know, targeting this generation on Pandora is really the way to go for advertisements. So as we move into the sample data, this is actually from a secondary source, Apple iTunes, interestingly enough, and I sorted cases just to look at millennials, so that age 22 to age 37 age range. So number one, to look at the sample breakdown by race. This is significantly less diverse than you'd see practically, but in our sample we had 80% Caucasian, 14% Black, and 6% other. And like I said, you know, this is a fine sample, but it's less diverse than you'd see in America. As America has gotten more diverse, you know, millennials have really exhibited that and exemplified that diversity. Number two, we have a sample breakdown by gender, and this is much more accurate than by race, but it's 54% female and 46% male. That is right on par with what you'd see practically out of millennials in domestically and globally. And number three, we have sample breakdown by work status, and you know, this is just similar to what I want to see. You know, 22 to 37. You know, on one end, you know, you're not working yet, you've just graduated college. On the other end, you're working full time. So I wanted to see who's working, who can provide for themselves, who has the expendable income, again, to be appealing to advertisers. So 84 out of our total sample of 127 was working full-time, and 15 were working part-time. So a total of 99 out of 127 are working in some capacity, so roughly 80% can provide for themselves, have money to spend. So now, you know, after telling this story, after evaluating our market position, and sort of evaluating our sample, we can begin to make our recommendations. So recommendation number one, prioritize advertising space for content under the most popular genres to millennials. So this is fairly practical. I just wanted to look at which genres of music are the millennials were most attracted to, and conversely, you know, the least popular genres to millennials. So in terms of highest popularity, number one was jazz, two was blues or R&B, and three was country western. And conversely, like I said, least popular was opera, rap, and heavy metal. Not really my taste either. But you know, this is fairly practical. I just wanted to see, you know, when millennials go to Pandora, you know, what genres of music are they looking to listen to? Because that gives us the desired space for advertisers. If advertisers know this generation of people, millennials, with purchasing power, that are educated, are diverse, you know, have a very wide-ranging array of interests, are going to these genres, you know, that's going to get advertisers excited to you know, get their brands out there and start advertising on those genres. And recommendation number two is sort of goes hand in hand with recommendation number one, sort of a tiered system. But you know, I'll explain this. But you know, recommendation number two is perform follow-up research to more adequately understand what activities drive millennial interest. So, what are advertisers interested in? Advertisers, if they know what station millennials are going to, you know, they now want to know what do millennials like to do. And I think secondary research has shown that millennials are more interested in experiences than, you know, maybe traditional media, watching TV. You know, millennials want to get out there, go to a concert, they want to do things. That really drives life satisfaction. So playing off of that and that research, I used my performance metric, which was, is life exciting or dull? And then I found within my data as many activities as there were, and I also found, and I basically wanted to see, you know, is going out there and doing an activity, is that driving life satisfaction? If it's driving life satisfaction, that's something, it's making your life more exciting, it's something you care about. If it's something you care about, then advertisers can play right into that. So my performance metric, like I said, is life or exciting or dull. And there is a correlation between activity level and life outlook. So as your activity level goes up, you know, you have a more positive life outlook. So you're more excited than dull when activity goes up. And similarly, when activity goes down, your life is more dull. Makes sense. So the independent variables I looked at were attended sports event in the last year, visit art gallery or museum, region of interview. Thought that would be interesting, you know, where you live, you know, more things going on versus not. Respondents' income, money allows you to be able to purchase things that allow you to do things. How often R watches television, which is a traditional thing to do, sit down, watch TV. Total family income, again, money allows you to purchase things, allows you to go places, allows you to do things. And how often R watches TV dramas or sitcoms, so along the same lines. And this, in terms of our data and the data we have available to us, this was the best we could do in terms of activities. So the two that were statistically significant were attended a sports event in the last year, and number two was region of interview. So interestingly enough, where you live, maybe someone who lives in Boston has a more exciting life than someone who lives in Fargo, North Dakota, for example, who knows. But and number two was attended a sports event in the last year, which is exactly what we want to see. So people that go to a sports event, they see their life as being more exciting, or their life is more exciting to them. That's how they evaluate themselves. And advertisers can leverage that. If something is making your life more exciting, that's something you want to continue doing. So maybe sports brands, teams can get on Pandora and advertise. But the reason I said that, perform follow-up research is because those were the only two statistically significant factors. Interestingly enough, income, whether it was the respondents themselves or their family, was not statistically significant, nor were any of the other variables. So watching TV was not significant, which plays into sort of that secondary research of, experiences versus traditional things to do that may have been popular, a generation or two ago. And, and nor was visited an art gallery or museum, which was fairly surprising given that a sports event did make a difference in terms of life outlook, but that could just be your sample. So ultimately, recommendation number two is perform the follow-up research. Let's get more event-centric data so that we know exactly what millennials are interested in, and I think that will really cover our base. So we understand that, so to conclude, we understand that the market is very healthy, both in terms of music streaming and advertising. Both are growing at a very significant clip. With that being said, it does not seem that Pandora is in the healthiest position given those market circumstances. So I think we know the genres that millennials are being driven to. This is the target, this is our target market, this is where we want our advertising revenue to come from, because this is going to prepare us for the future as we move forward into changing market circumstances. But with that being said, we don't know exactly what millennials like to do, what they're interested in, and therefore we can't adequately tell you, what brands, what advertisers specifically can really capitalize on this millennial demographic within our sample. So with that being said, to start, we'd like to really, pigeonhole our advertisers into our most popular genres, really leverage those genres. But with that being said, number two, we want to perform follow-up research to better understand what brands can, really reach millennials and really be the best for Pandora and supplement the revenue you've lost for users and, grow that advertising return on investment as much as possible. So that concludes my presentation. Thank you very much, and I'd like to open up to any questions.